in India. Now, without further delay, let us come together to welcome Professor Ratna Bosu to hear a figure whose presence undoubtedly enriches our gathering. Ma'am, now, now you can start, ma'am. Now the platform is yours. You can start.
Um, that- Now you can now begin. Okay. Okay.
Ma'am, ma'am, are you?
Yes, should I start?
Yeah, yeah, yes, ma'am.
Namaskar. I am extremely thankful to the International School of Dravidian Linguistics and its secretary, Dr. S. Abdul Samad, and honorary director, Professor G.K. Panikkar, who have kindly invited me to speak on Indian tradition of Sanskrit grammar in the seminar entitled Indian Grammatical Tradition. First of all, I congratulate the esteemed institute ISDL for organizing a seminar on such a topic, which is usually considered to be very abstruse and difficult. But since morning, I was listening to the lectures and I was enlightened. I have been enlightened by the nice lectures. Now, my topic is the Indian tradition of Sanskrit grammar. Now, I would come later on to the subject what was grammar in Indian concept. I have some problem with the thing. Mm. Mm. Yes. So let's start talking. Now, since the time of the Vedas, and I would situate the Vedic period to third millennium BC, to the middle of third millennium BC, following Maurice Winternates and others, who analyzed and determined the date or age of the Vedic language on the basis of linguistic studies to be around 2500 BCE. And the other calculation, as expounded by Friedrich Max Müller, on the basis of religious studies, it was around the middle of the second millennium BCE, that is, little before or up to 1500 BCE. Because the decisions and theories about the science of religion, then exposed and expounded by Friedrich Max Müller, had been later all rejected. So the date determining the age of the Vedic language on the basis of the religious practice does not hold good anymore. So let us stick to the middle of the third millennium BC on an average. So during that period, the Vedic lore was the Vedic Samhitas and the explanation of the Vedic mantras, the Brahmanas, Brahman being a word in neutral gender, meaning mantra. So the mantras collected in the collection of Samhitas and the explanatory texts of the mantras, that is the Brahmanas. So mantra and Brahmana. And in these Brahmanas, which explained not only the rituals where the mantras were to be applied or recited or sung, being put to tune or being applied while offering the oblations into the holy fire or otherwise, or even for daily recitation by the Brahmins who had undergone the ceremony of the sacred trade, the Upanayana Samskara, that was Brahmajajya. So Brahmajajya or the particular individual sacrifices where the mantras were applied, these details of the ritual practice and administering the ritual was explained or has been explained in the Brahmana texts. And mantras, pure mantras, are in the Samhita part of the Vedic lore. And these Brahmanas include Brahmana, and the Brahmanas, while explaining the ritual or the application in the ritual or the intricacies of a ritual, also explained the meanings of the mantras, because otherwise the connection between the text and the ritual would remain obscure. That is why in the Brahmanas we get first the inception or the seeds of grammatical explanations or of word and meaning or words and their derivations. And in the Brahmanas, the Brahmana texts were a compendium of pure Brahmanas, this applicational text, and Aranyakas, and also Upanishads, the philosophical texts. So here we find the first lessons on phonetics in the Brahmanas and Aranyakas. So in the Tattiriya Aranyaka, chapter 7, 6 chapters are devoted to lessons on phonetics. Varana or sound, swara or accent. Swara can mean also swara varana, then it is vowel. And matra, quantity. Bala, articulation. Saman, recital. And santana, that is connection, connectivity. And Aitareya Aranyaka, section 3, Taittiriya Aranyaka, section 7, and Chandogya Upanishad, section 2, chapter 22, all explain the phonetics in this sense. And the alphabet, the Sanskrit alphabet, the Varnamala, is introduced, and it is called Akshara Samamnaya. So Akshara means something which doesn't move, which doesn't decay, which is steady and which is stable. And Akshara Samamnaya, that is Varna Samamnaya. Till date, in Sanskrit grammar, the Varna Samamnaya is the beginning of entering into any grammatical shastra or grammatical literature. So swara or vowels, they are the Varnas, the Varnamala or Akshara Samamnaya. When explained, they are divided into four categories. Swara, that is vowels, Sparsha, or stops, or the plosives, that is those consonants which are pronounced by touching different portions inside the mouth by the tip of the tongue. So without touching those internal organs or parts of organs within the mouth by the tip of the tongue, these sounds, consonant sounds, cannot be produced. So sprish dhatu, the root sprish means touching. So they are sparsha varnas. Now in English, it is called stops or plosives. And then anta stop, that is semi-vowels, ya, va. Why semi-vowels? Because in the process of phonetic change, while undergoing any morphological development, those sounds, those semi-vowels change change when undergo or are affected by any phonetic change. They are changed to those consonants like ya, va, ra, lo. So those are semi-vowels. They are in between the consonants and the vowels. And ushman, ushma varna are the spirants, the sibilants mainly. The science of inquiry into production of sounds of speech developed fully at that time. The science of inquiry into the production of sound. And the Shiksha Granthas, the Pratishakyas, because the Vedic lore was combined by 6 branches of auxiliary learning. The 6 Vedangas: Shiksha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chando, Jyotisha, and Kalpa. So Jyotisha and Kalpa, they were mainly connected with the execution of the rituals. But Shiksha was for the pronunciation, that is the phonetics or the science of phonology. And the Pratishakya texts contain those lessons. And each of the Vedic Samhitas has its own Brahmana and several recensions of those Brahmanas, and also the Pratishakyas belonging to that particular Vedic Samhita and explanations also of that. So the Rik Pratishakya, Yajup Pratishakya, Shukla Yajup Pratishakya, and so on and so forth. So in Brahmana text,
ম্যাম মিউট হয়ে গেছে আপনার
I'm sorry,
সাউন্ডটা।
the net is disturbing. The internet is disturbing a bit. Please bear with me. So in the Brahmana, Varna or sound and Avasana or pause or end of a pronunciation are explained. In the Atharva Veda, 4 verbal etymologies, among many others, are very prominent. Next, grammar was linked with ritual. Grammar was not an independent science for learning the language or explaining the language only. Although the word Vyakarana has been derived and explained as Vyakriyante Vyutpadyante Shabda Anena, or Asadu Shabdebhya Vivichya Sadhu Shabda Nirupyante iti Vyakaranam. That is, the correct words are to be picked up, excluding the wrongly applied words. That is the science of Vyakaranam. And words are derived and analyzed from their root or stem, and how they are formed by adding suffixes to them. That is Vyakriyante. It is analysis of the words. Vyutpadyante. The derivation is shown. Iti Vyakaranam. Vyutpatti, a derivation of what? Shabda. Words. Grammar was linked with ritual. If the understanding of the text was not fair enough, sufficient enough, or strong enough, then reading of the Ved or recitation of the Vedic text was considered to be futile. And without understanding the grammar, the meaning could not be determined. And in cases of doubts, wrong decisions would be taken by the listener by or from hearing a Vedic sentence, and he may perform a wrong work, and that will bring onus instead of holy deed for the performing of the sacrifice. And in the history, we find the ancient most text, the Taittiriya Samhita, 7/4 and 7/3. We find that Indra, Lord Indra, is connected with Vyakarana, beginning of grammar. Now we can remember here also the story of Kenopanishad, where Indra, the king of gods, was the first to receive the Brahma Vidya from Uma Haimavati. All others, Agni and Vayu, could not. Indra was the first. So in case of this also, Vak, or the speech and the science of speech, was exposed first to Indra. Vag vai parachi avyakrita avadat. Vak, speech, was first avyakrita, unanalyzed, undivided. And Vak said, speech said, Te Deva Indram Obruvan, those gods told Indra, Imang no Vachang Vyakuru iti. Gods requested Indra, please explain and analyze this Akhanda Vak to us. And what did Indra do? Tam is Tam Vacham. Indro Madhyato Avakramya Vyakarot. Indra intervened in the middle, that is in the middle of the Vak and the gods, and Tam Vacham, and explained and analyzed Vak. So Indra is connected with the first analysis of Vak. And it is a very vast subject. To complete it within 1 hour is Herculean task, and I am really unable to do that. I'm a poor person. And further, so the Padapathas of the Vedic Samhitas of Rigveda and Yajurveda, the Padapathas show that with the background of the grammatical analysis of the language, the Padapathas are being given shape with signs and symbols, showing the Swarita and the Anudatta with different types of strokes, vertical stroke for Swarita in Rigveda and horizontal stroke below the concerned syllable for Anudakta. So this Padapatha function, now we have got printed text of Padapatha, but the Sanghita Patha and the Padapatha. The Padapatha is ascribed to one Vedamitra Shakalya. The final reduction of the Vedic Samhitas reveals the influence of grammatical thought in the mistaken extension of hiatus after the pronominal forms, and so on and so forth. Because Brahmanas sometimes still quote the Rig Veda words in their original pre-reduction form, it can be assumed that the reductor's work extended into the early Brahmana period. For all later authors, the forms given in the sacred Samhitas are beyond dispute. We know that several 8 types of readings were practiced so that there is no diversion in the reading. Major achievements were the Padapathas, word for word recitations to the Vedic Samhitas, probably in the sequence Samaveda, Rigveda, Atharvaveda, Yajurveda, first referred to possibly in the Aitareya Brahmana 543 and certainly in Aitareya Aranyaka 326. The Padapatha of the Rig Veda is ascribed to one Vedamitra Shakalya. Shakalya is often quoted to and referred to by Panini. So he is certainly a predecessor or forerunner of Panini. And Panini's time, as determined by Hartmut Scharfe, is 6th century BCE, and other scholars differ in their opinions, placing or situating Panini between 4th century BCE or 5th century BCE to even 6th or 7th century BCE. Now, the whole text in the Padapatha is broken up into its elements. Sandhi between words is dissolved. Compounds are split up by inserting a pause, the sign of avagraha, between their members. Even in certain cases, suffixes are separated from the stem. That is, those suffixes before which the stem undergoes the same morphophonemic changes as between words. For example, vachobhir, in this case, plural of vachas. So this appears as vachah and then bhi. A late echo of this practice is found in Panini's grammar, where the noun stem before those suffixes is called pada, padasanga, yachibham, and anyat sarvang padam. So he makes bhasanga and padasanga, the particular name given. Occasionally, the Padapatha replaces extinct forms with those more familiar forms of that time. Now, I skip over and come to Panini. As I've already said, Panini is referred to in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali as Dakshi Putra. And Panini work or Panini's system of grammar consists of actually 5 parts. There is debate whether all these parts are authored by Panini. But now, Panini is not only the oldest grammarian whose work has come down to us, he is also the greatest. His full name was Dakshiputra Panini, as referred to in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, one under the Sutra 175, and also in the 3rd chapter. In the common style, which added a metronymic to the name itself. His mother was named Dakshi, and here we can have a frill, an extra, what should I say, information that in ancient India, so many sages and great Shastrakaras were known by the name of their mothers. Panini's father's name or his Gotro name, family name, is not known. He is referred to by the term Dakshiputra. And also in anthologies, he is named Dakshiputra, Dhritir Dakshiputre. So we have patience for Panini, the son of Dakshi. And also Ashwaghosha is mentioning himself at the end of his Mahakabya as Subarnakshi Putra. His mother was Subarnakshi. His father's name is not noted. So, and Panini is noted as Shalaturiya. So he belonged to the place Shalatura in Gandhara, in modern day Afghanistan, near the river Kubha, near Kabul. And Panini's date can be fixed only approximately, and he must be prior to Katyayana, who made the Vartikas on Panini, the revision and addition to Panini's sutras according to the need of the time of the language in use during his time, during Katyayana's time. And Katyayana is situated as 250 BCE, who, and Katyayana, in his comments on Panini's work, refers to other, still earlier scholars dealing with Panini's grammar. His proximity to the Vedic language, as found in the Upanishads and Vedic Sutra literature, suggests the 5th or maybe even the 6th century BCE. So says Hartmut Scharfe. His home was the town of Shalatura in ancient Gandhara, northwest India, modern day Lahore, in the angle where the Kabul River, the Kubha River of those days, and the Indus met, about 20 miles northwest of strategic Attock Bridge. Outside Lahore, there are now some high mounds which likely contain ancient sites. The Chinese monk Xuanzang visited the city in 7th century current era. So these are not so important. So Panini mentions at least 10 predecessors in his work. They are namely Apishali, Kashyapa, Gargya, Galava, Chakravarmana, Bharadwaja, Shakatayana, and Shakatayana's grammar is available in print. Shakalya, Senaka, Spotayana, Avang Spotayanasya, in Sandhi there is one sutra, and Yaska, and some more are also there. So very and others are also referred to and mentioned by Panini. Panini's work starts with the Varna Samamnaya, the Maheshwara Sutras. Why do I say this? If the Maheshwara Sutra, the alphabet in that order is not taken up and accepted just like that and memorized, then the technical terms and the short forms, so-called pratyaharas, used by Panini in his sutras cannot be understood and interpreted and at all grasped. So, first comes the Maheshwara Sutras. Of course, the tradition says that these Maheshwara Sutras are having their source in Maheshwara, Lord Shiva's sounding the Damaru. Nrittavasane Nataraja Raja Dhakkang Nonado Nava Panchabaram. The 14 Maheshwara Sutras, they are actually the alphabet. It doesn't mean that before Panini's Ashtadhyayi, Indians were not having any sense of the alphabets. It has already been clear, as I explained, from the Samhita period and later on. Also, in the Samhita itself, at least in one verse, in one mantra of Rigveda 164, Mandala 1, Sukta 164, there is one popular regional word, Akhalikitya, that is Akshari Kritya. So the Varnas, it is not meant that the Varnas, the letters or the alphabet were not known in India before these Maheshwara Sutras were enumerated and uttered by Panini at the beginning of his Ashtadhyayi. It is only that the letters of the alphabet are to be memorized now in this order. Ayun Relik, Eong Ayoch, Hajavarat Lan, Javai Gadadas, Namananam, Javai Gadadas, and so on. Otherwise, the first sutra, Briddhir Adach, what is this H and what is this At, will not be understood. So, as a gateway to Panini's Ashtadhyayi, the grammatical work in 8 chapters, and it is a compact, indivisible work in 8 chapters. They cannot be excluded from each other. That is why the Samahara Dvigu Ashtanang Adhyayanam Samahara Ashtadhyayi, like Saptapadi, Tripadi, Chatushpadi, and so on and so forth. So, for this Ashtadhyayi, the gateway is the Varna Samamnaya. And the divinity is given naturally so that people, the readers, the students, take it seriously, that they memorize the letters of the alphabet in this particular order. Panini's chapter 1 are the meta rules and rules about rules, the Sangha and Paribhasha. And thereafter, the categories of grammar, if we take for ancient India, they are namely stem, nama, and nama is also called pratipadika, and pratipadicas were derived or underived. The underived pratipadicas were called fish. In declination, in Prathama Ekavachana is pit and pratipadika, or derived. So, for the definition of pratipadika, Panini has got two sutras. Arthavad Adhatur Apratyaya Pratipadikam. The collection of syllables which has a meaning which is not a root and which is not a suffix, that is a Pratipadika. So, some letters taken together which does not form a root, a dhatu, or a pratyaya, a suffix, but has a meaning, sensible meaning, that is pratipadikam. And then again the additional krit tadhita samasascha. These are the so-called secondary pratipadikas, the derived pratipadikas, the vyutpanna pratipadikas. The words formed by adding the primary suffixes, that is krit suffixes, to the roots, and the secondary suffixes, the tadhita suffixes, to the stems, words, and samasa, by combining several words or words and roots, again new words are formed, new pratipadikas are formed. Krit tadhita samasascha. So Panini's Ashtadhyayi, and thereafter 8 chapters, and each chapter is divided into 4 sections called padas, and so 32 padas. And again, this has another division. From the beginning, 7 chapters, and first section of the 8th chapter, Sapada Saptadhyayi. They form one unit, and the latter part, that is section 2, 3, 4 of the 8th chapter, they form another group. This means Sapada Saptadhyayam Prati Tripadi Asiddha. So, for this first section, 7 chapters and the first section of the 8th chapter, the latter sutras in the 3 sections of the 8th chapter are not valid. They do not have any influence. Otherwise, Vipratishedhe Param Karyam, and the latter sutras affect the former sutras. But here, it is not. And again, within that portion of 3 sections of the 8th chapter, each sutra stands individually. Hartmut Scharfe and other researchers call them unilateral or unidirectional sutras. They are each for themselves. They can affect the following sutras. There can be anuvritti, continuation of the previous on the next, but not otherwise. The latter sutras cannot influence the former sutras. And altogether, Panini's Ashtadhyayi contains about 4,000, little less than 4,000, 3996 sutras. This is the calculation. So the categories of grammar, nama and dhatu, then karaka, then vibhakti, and samasa, and krit, and tadhita. So beyond this, we can have syntax. Why is syntax not taken separately? Because all karaka and samasa and karaka and vibhakti, they pertain to the syntax. In the syntactical formation and their meaning. And 2 chapters, major part of the chapter 4 and whole of chapter 5 are for the suffixes. Be Phadgun assumed a dichotomy. The chapters 1 to 5, he labeled the Badgon theory of the ultimate components of language or the analytical part of grammar. The chapter 6 to 8, the theory of phonological and morphological coalescence or the synthetic part of grammar. Panini nowhere makes such a distinction, nor does Patanjali. The whole grammar is synthetic, but its synthetic character is half hidden in the peculiar presentation which more or less follows the words as they emerge from the mouth of the speaker, from root through vikarana and suffix, nominal, krit or verbal, to the vibhaktis. With the vibhaktis, verbs and nouns part their ways. For the elements, we substitute one of the 18 substitutes, and for the stem, for the declination, there are 21 forms or suffixes added to it. Now, most of the chapter 4 and all of the 5th chapter are devoted to the secondary suffixes tadvita pratyaya, because words are formed and formed. Panini creates this one-directional string of rules, that is, each rule applies to forms as they appear up to this point, but is non-existent or siddha when it comes to the application of any earlier rule. This is the so-called tripadi, as I have already said, the 3 sections. And in addition to this Ashtadhyayi, now first of all, Varna Samamnaya, then we have the Ashtadhyayi, then further Dhatu Patha and Gana Patha are ascribed also to Panini, because Panini Sutras are referring Prakityadibhya Upasankhyanam, Sarvadini Sarvanamani. So the list of words as available in the Ganapatha. These are the words. And Bhuvadayo Dhatava. The Dhatu Patha in the 10 groups, the 10 Ganas, and with their meanings is in the Dhatu Patha. There is one commentary on the Dhatu Patha also, the Madhavya Dhatu Vritti, short commentary type of Vritti. The Ganas lack a feature typical for Sutra and Dhatu Patha. Panini's knack of putting every formulation to double or triple use through a resourceful employment of sequence, accents, and determinatives. The Ganas may, in character, if not in the exact formulation, represent the explanations given to the students. So, the Ganapathas are there later on taken as also not only those words as found in the Gana, but Akriti Gana. It started from the Kashika Vritti, 7th century, that similar other words may also be included in that Gana. Another word is Unadi Sutra. The Unadi Sutras, because Panini refers in 2 sutras to the Pratyaya Un. And Unadi Sutras is a long section. Whether that is really authored by Panini is doubted by scholars. But for study of Panini, these Unadis suffixes are essential, because the Unadi section or the Unadi work, so to say, endeavors to derive each and every word with a stem or a dhatu and a suffix, pratyaya. So, unadi pratyaya. And other thing is the linganu shasana. Whether linganu shasana Yes, can you hear me? Hello, friends.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
It's disturbing very much. So I hope I'm audible now. Whether the Linganu Shasana was authored by Panini is debated very much. It is appended. Linganu Shasana is instruction about the gender of words, the stems. It is found in the appendix to the Siddhanta Kaumudi, early 17th century. And because it is based on the usage of words. The other work attributed to Panini is the work of phonetics, the Paniniya Shiksha. The Shiksha Granthas are not directly Vyakarana, but works on pronunciation of phonetics. Now, without phonetics, the Vyakarana cannot proceed because Vyakarana has to deal with the development of the sounds within words when they undergo morphological development. And Panini's grammar and the Sanskrit language being 100% inflectional language, Panini's sutras synthesize 4 or 5 things together through his particular technique of appending particular consonants as anubandhas to dhatus and also to pratyayas, to the suffixes. Those anubandhas indicate the phonetic change in the base, stem or root, and also for the accent, whether the pratyaya will be accented or the base, the root or the stem remain accented or any other change. So the phonetic change and also the accent and the phonetic development and the morphological formation, these are all combined and synthesized in the most brief technique of Panini through the care of his Anubandhas. So same O pratyaya, sometimes he says to, sometimes he says on, sometimes he says un, sometimes he says o. Why? Because it will indicate where this suffix is to stand, is to edit, and then what happens to the sounds available in the base, that is root or stem, and what change the suffix will undergo. And further, gender also. There are some suffixes which would command masculine gender, like ki. There are some suffixes which will command feminine gender in the derived word, like tin. And there are some words which, some suffixes which will form indeclinables, like lop or twa. And there is again another technique whether some augment will be there. The Anubandhas indicate that also. There is one book, the Anubandhas in Panini. So if pa is it, pa is not shown, is seen, then what will happen? Then one to, dental to, will come as augment. Rasvasya piti kriti tuk, like upagatya, upakritya, krilyap. So not kriya but krita. But agamya, there's no hasva, gum, there's consonant. In that case, it will not be so. So Panini and with him, the grammarians that contributed to the science of grammar before him owe their greatness to a combination of fundamental discoveries. Number one, the insight that the proper object of grammar is the spoken language, not its written presentation. The theory of substitution. Number three, the analysis of root and suffix. Number four, the recognition of ablaut correspondences. Guna vriddhi samprasarana. Yajkta is ishta. Here is samprasarana. And guna is when E becomes A. Ish, lut, eshanam. And bhu, lut, bhavanam. U becomes O. This is guna. And lengthening also. So guna, vriddhi, samprasarana and lengthening. These are the ablaut correspondences. Number five, the formal description of language as against a logical characterization. And number six, the transparent nature of the concise, number six, the concise formulation through the use of a meta language. There is one book published in 1971 by Hartmut Scharfe, The Meta Language of Panini. So, number six, I was talking about this, the concise formulation, the compact 3-tier, 4-tier, 5-level combination. So, which will give indication for the guna vriddhi samprasarana or lengthening dirgha, or with the accent, or with some augment. So everything is there with some particular grammatical sounds or consonants added to these suffixes. So this is number 6, the concise formulation through the use of a meta language. It is often said that the transparent nature of Sanskrit made the analysis possible, but we can argue as well that it was first Panini's and his predecessors' analysis which made the structure so transparent. Was the relationship of Dohmi and Adhukshat or Madjati and Madgu really obvious? While the Pratishakyas, the Shiksha Granthas, and own popular grammar have it that, for example, the sound ba becomes pa under certain conditions, it has always been the view of Indian grammarians that the sound pa is substituted for ba, does not change. It is our mind that switches from one phoneme to the other. Whenever grammar is developed as an ancilla philosophize, there is a danger that logical or metaphysical categories are forced on the grammatical analysis, subject, predicate, substantive, etc. In India, grammatical analysis preceded due to the role of Vedic tradition. Panini gives us neither a logical nor a psychological systematic philosophy, but a grammatical description of the language which was prevalent at his time in different parts of his knowledge. Words that end in one of the case suffixes are our nouns. Sup, sup vibhakti. Those that end in personal endings, tip to mahi, are verbs. So the vibhaktis indicate what are the roots and what are the stems. The algebraic formulation of Panini's rules was not appreciated at first by Western students. They regarded the work as abstruse or artificial. This criticism was evidently not shared by most Indian grammarians. After all, later on, it all changed, thanks to Paul Thieme and others. It is interesting to observe, in contrast, what Panini does not teach. First, he does not deal with phonetics. When he appears to do so, the thrust of his rule is nevertheless grammatical, terming sounds with an equal pronunciation effort in the mouth, sa swara of equal color, sa varna of equal color, is necessary for the use of this term. The first European contact with Panini's work was in the 18th century. It was indirect through popular handbooks based on Panini's analysis until soon afterwards Henry Thomas Colebrook mastered the original text and translated it. Thereafter, Otto von Bertling gained for Panini his rightful place in the center of Indological studies after Bertling first published Panini's Ashtadhyayi in the year 1839-1840 from Leipzig, and the second edition was 1887. Now Yaska is more for Nirukta, the etymology, but yet the commentators of Yaska make it grammatical. And Panini's commentaries, if we keep on saying, the earliest, not commentary, but additional or supplement was Kattayona's Vartikas. There is some legend about Panini, and Panini refers to language as Bhasha, 3 to 108 Sutra, and also 8 to 83, 84. Let me read out something. And the real commentary, an exhaustive commentary on Panini, is by Patanjali. Patanjali's time is determined as 150 BCE, during the time of the Shungas, particularly during the time of Pushyamitra Shunga. Because, for example, of Lot, Patanjali gives the example, Pushyamitrang Yajayamah. We make the sacrifice for Pushyamitra in present tense. That means he was contemporary and he was one of the priests in the sacrifice administered or performed by Pushyamitra. Now, Yaska, Panini and Shakalya, Shakalya for Parapatha, Yaska for Nirukta, they might have been contemporaries, or Yaska and Shakalya little forerunner for Panini. Yaska's Nirukta was commented upon by Durga Singha in the 13th century current era. Now, Mahabhashya does not comment upon each and every sutra of Panini. About 1/3 of the sutras of Panini are not commented upon by Patanjali, and somewhere he commented upon but considered that the sutra was not needed. Among others, the most popular and known example is the 7 sutras for Apadana Karaka. Patanjali accepts only Dhrubam Apaye Apadanam. The rest of the sutras, Janikartu Prakriti Bhuva Prabhava, etc., he says the Buddhist Paramarsha can determine, that means the psychological, intellectual involvement can imaginary separation create. So the Buddhist Paramarsha, the intellectual endeavor can create, can imagine this separation of Apaya, and then the Apadana Karaka can be set by the Dhruvam Apaya Apadanam only. So Patanjali does not name his Bhashya as Mahabhashya. But about Mahabhashya, there is one story. And there is a common saying, Mahabhashyam va Pataniyam, Maharajyam va Paluniyam. Either you read the Mahabhashya and teach the Mahabhashya, or rule a large kingdom. On Mahabhashya, there are commentaries of Kayata, Pradeepa, and Nagesha, that is Udyota. And Patanjali's Buddhist Paramarsha is functioning in many cases, in many cases, in Samasa also. I give here one popular and humorous example. When somebody, Patanjali says, tells a weaver, take these threads and weave a vastra. In that case, the question is, the order is fallacious. If the vastra is, the cloth is already there, the question of weaving does not arise. In that case, Patanjali's solution to this problem is that the speaker means a potential name, bhavini sanjya, to the thing to be made, that is vastra. That is a name that will be realized at a later time, bhavini. Weave that which, when woven, will be called cloth. And then I come to the commentary. There are so many commentaries on Mahabhashya, and later on, after the 15th or 16th century, Panini's grammar was more and more taken for the formulation or derivations. So Prakriya Kanda, and then developed mostly after Bhattoji Dikshita, 16th and 17th century. So Bhattoji Dikshita, I start from the back, took Ashtadhyayi and categorized and grouped the sutras according to subject matter, like Sanya or Paribhasha or Sandhi, euphonic combination, and Samasa, Karaka, and Vibhakti. The most important distinction between Panini's sutras on Karaka and Vibhakti and other grammars like Bopadeva's Mugdha Bodha or Katantra Vyakarana or Chandragomin's Chandra Vyakarana or Sankshipta Sara, etc., lies in the fact that Panini exclusively gives sutras defining the 6 karakas and then enlists the vibhaktis, the 7 vibhaktis, where and for what karaka, and beyond the karakas, the vibhaktis can communicate some other things too. So, but those grammars other than Panini, they rather combined these Karako and Vibhakti sutras together. In one sutra, they said, in these cases, there is Panchami in Apadano. Like this. Not that by this sutra we get the Apadano and then by this sutra we get the Panchami Vibhakti. And according to Panini, each Karaka has its, I don't translate the word Karaka because the word case in English or casus in German rather denotes and signifies the Vibhakti, the ending, not the Karaka. So, Bertling did not translate the word Karaka. So, I don't give any English word for Karaka. So, the Karaka, for each Karaka, the Kartri and Karana, these 2 Karakas take the Tritiya Vibhakti. They have their own Vibhakti Tritiya. Kartri Karanayos Tritiya. Karmani Dvitiya. Karma has its own basic Vibhakti Dvitiya. And then it may take other endings under certain circumstances. So, first of all, as late as 16th century, we get the Vyakarana Siddhanta Kaumudi and then followed the commentaries, series of commentaries and commentaries on that. Like the most famous is Bala Manorama of Bhanuja Dikshita and Tattva Bodhini of Jinendra Buddhi. And we have also, before that, the Buddhist grammarians. The Buddhist grammarians, one way, commented upon Ashtadhyayi, like Bhamana and Jayaditya's composition Kashika. It is in the 7th century, and it followed the same order of sutras as in the Ashtadhyayi, did not group them separately. But before that, before Kumarulato, around 4th century current era, there was one Kumarulato or Sarbo Burman who composed the Katantra Vyakarana, whose very small fragments were recovered from Turkestan. And that Vyakarana is called Kaumara Vyakarana or Kolapa Vyakarana. After that, we have Vamana and Jayaditya, and that Katantra Vyakarana was ascribed to Sarva Burman. Maybe that Sarva Burman himself prepared one short commentary britti to it. Katantra Vyakarana was the model for the topical arrangement of the grammatical categories. And then we have the Kashika. And on Kashika, there are commentaries of Nyasa and Padamanjari. Around 450 current era, Chandra Gomin lived, and Chandra Gomin authored one Buddhist drama, Lokananda, lost in Sanskrit, available in Tibetan translation only in the Tibetan Tripitaka Tenjur collection, and one short Sanskrit poem, Shishya Lekha Dharma Kavya. Chandra Gomin's Vyakarana is available. It is in 6 chapters, excluding any Vedic application of language, and it contains around 3,100 sutras. Like Ashtadhyayi, Chandra Gomin's chapters are divided into 4 sections called padas, and Bruno Levy as Keelhorn first edited Mahabhashya. Similarly, Bruno Levy, another German scholar, first edited in the 19th century, toward the end of 19th century, the Chandra Vyakarana. Later on, from Pune, Kitish Chandra Chattopadhyay edited and published the Chandra Vyakarana from Deccan College, Pune. And Chandra Gomin also, together with the sutras, he himself composed a short vritti. Many people debate or doubt that the vritti is not authored by Chandra Gomin, but there are proofs that Chandra Gomin himself composed the vritti also. The unadi suffixes are not found in Chandra Gomin's Vyakarana. And then the Kashika. Chandra Gomin's grammar is the first great remake of Panini's grammar, so to say, in the model of Panini. Chandra Gomin's material contribution to grammatical description is the wider use of the genitive case, chapter 2, section 1. The use of the negation ma, and the wide use, and the vibhasha, and anyatarasyam. So Chandra Gomin adheres to Panini's meta language and develops it in some detail. The Jainas too adopted Sanskrit as a vehicle for thought, and they authored grammar of Sanskrit. The Jainendra Vyakarana of Devanandin, called also Pujyapada Devanandin, 5th century current era. And then the others put him later, Devanandin, later than Kashka, that is after 7th century, early 7th century. If he is before Kashika, then he is 5th century. Otherwise, Devanandin is 7th century. The Jaino polymath Hemachandra Suri, 11th century CE, composed the Siddha Hemachandra or Siddha Hemachandra or Siddha Vyakaranam. He was patronized by the Chalukya king Jayasingha. So, in Gujarat, and as a rival to Bhoja's Saraswati Kantha Bharana, Hemachandra Suri composed 4,500 sutras on the basis of, as he declares, Shakatayana Vyakarana, which however is not available. Now, in these 8 books, just like Panini's Ashtadhyayi, the last book, 7 books, 7 chapters explain Sanskrit grammar, but the 8th chapter is a grammar of all Prakrit languages, 4 Prakrit languages, and also the Apabhramsha language. And the later Panini schools, the first author after Patanjali, whose work still have, is Bhartrihari's, a disciple of Vasurata, and he lived in the 5th century, in the latter half of the 5th century. So, Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya, and Vakyapadiya has 3 kandas. It is composed in verses with vritti, and the books are named kanda. They are called Brahma Kanda, Shabda Kanda, and Prakirana Kanda, containing respectively 138, 487, and around 500 verses. The Vakyapadiya is a philosophy of language. It is not only a grammar of the language, it is the thought which gives rise to language and expression. That thought process is explained in all philosophical terms. And Shabda Brahmabad, the Advaita, the monism of word and meaning is explained. The Kashmiri author Hela Raja, 10th century CE, wrote separate commentaries on all the books of Bhakyapadiya of Bhartrihari. Shabda Prabha, Bhakya Pradipa, and Prakirana Prakasha. These are the 3 sections. Bhartrihari asserts the value of traditional interpretation and criticizes the grammarians who take the language as a dry analysis. He follows rather the philosophy of the Mahabhashya, agreeing with Patanjali's attitude towards grammar. And here again I repeat, why we take the Varna Samamnaya as an integral part of Ashtadhyayi. That is explained in the towards the end of the Paspashanika of Mahabhashya by Patanjali. Kimartham tarhi varnanam upadesha. Then he says, Shastra pravityartham pratyahara karanartham cha. So if the Varnamala is not learnt in this way, there won't be any pravesha, any entry successful for Ashtadhyayi Vyakarana, Sutra Patha. And for the Pratyaharas, which are unavoidable, inevitable, integral part of Panini's grammatical system. And why the Paniniya Shiksha is most debated among the Panini's grammatical system works, among the works of Panini's grammatical system, because towards the end of Paniniya Shiksha, there are pranama verses, homage expressed to Panini. Jenakshara samamnayam samudritva maheshwarat जेनाक्षर समाम्नायम अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः अज्ञानान्धस्य लोकस्य ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै पाणिनये नमः, and so on and so forth. So verses 57 onwards are homage to Panini. Now, as a manuscriptologist, we may assume that these may be later added verses by the scribes of the Paniniya Shiksha, because Paniniya Shiksha begins with the alphabet and the pronunciation of the alphabet, and how fine and intricate care should be, sincere care should be taken while pronouncing the letters. Vyagri yatha haret putran Donstrabhyang Noto Pidayet Evam Varnan Samudda Haret. So, as a tigress carries her cubs in between her teeth but does not cause any pain or hurt the cub, just like that, in between the teeth and the mouth organs, the sound should be produced without pressing them too much so that the sounds are defective. Now later on, Panini Sutras must have been accompanied by other sutras as supplemented by Katyayana. And Kashika Vritti of Jayaditya and Vamana, both Buddhists, 7th century CE, in spite of the Vritti from Benares. And the commentary follows a sutra text, often adopts alterations proposed by Mahabhashya. I mean, it is of Kashika. Kashika mostly follows Mahabhashya. The Buddhist Jinendra Buddhi, 8th or 9th century CE, wrote the voluminous commentary Kashika Vivarano Ponjika, otherwise called Nyasa, on it, in which demonstrations, yes, I conclude, demonstrations and interpretation of the Ashtadhyayi and Katyayana's Vartikas. Haradatta's Padamanjari on Kashika is 13th century CE. The Buddhist commentator Purushottama Deva, 12th century CE, hailing from Bengal, Borendra Bhumi, commented upon Ashtadhyayi in the Ashtadhyayi Sutra order and called it Bhasha Vritti. However, Purushottama Deva excluded all Vedic sutras, and Purushottama Deva's work was commented upon by one Srishtidhara Chakravarti. And Rupamala of Bimala Saraswati and Prakriya Kaumudi of Ramachandra, 14th or 15th century, Prakriya Sarvasva of Narayana Bhatto, and Siddhanta Kaumudi of Bhattoji Dikshita, early 17th century CE, and then commented upon by Bala Manorama and Praudha Manorama, and all but Panini's work. And then later on, Saranadeva tried to explain and justify each and every application of the famous poets. So, somehow or other, as if Saranadeva had to justify. So, his Vritti is called Durghata Vritti. Bopadeva, 13th century CE, a member of a family of physicians, authored the Mugdha Bodha Vyakarana, which was commented upon by Jagadhara of Kashmir. Bopadeva's grammatical work Mugdha Bodha has 1184 sutras, about 1200 sutras in 26 sections, and it is commented upon by one Kartikeya Siddhanta and also Jagadhara of Kashmir. The origin of Saraswata Vyakarana by Saraswati Sutra, that is by Anubhuti Swarupacharya, again 13th and 14th century CE. So this way, and further, other Kramadishwara, a Shaiva, authored the Sankshipta Shara Vyakarana, and which was supplemented by Jumaranandin with the Rasavati Britti commentary. But it happened so that the Sankshipta Sara Sutras and the Britti cannot be separated today. And this Sankshipta Sara, together with Rasavati Britti, was commented upon by many commentators. But the most important among them is Goi Chandra's commentary.
Yes, yes.
The oldest of the grammars
Dear Professor,
preserved is Purushottama's
Professor,
Prakritanu
and the scholar
Sasana.
is waiting.
If I utter my last sentence, please excuse me. It is very interesting to note that the last chapter of Sankshipta Sara is on Prakrito Vyakarana, the grammar of Prakrito language, following the model of Hema Chandra Suri of Siddha Hema Anusasana. So Sanskrit grammar is a very big tree encompassing, and for example, only on Dhatu, some books came out, like the Dhatu Ratnakara or Dharani Kosha by Dharani Dasa. These are of 12th century. So starting from the Vedic Brahmana and Aranyaka period up to the 18th century, original grammatical theoretical works and commentaries on them flourished on and on. But the other commentaries, the difference is Panini's grammar and the predecessors of Panini's grammar, which we have not received, of course. Panini's grammar belongs to or has the status of Vedanga, while the other grammars do not have that status. The Mugdha Bodha or Katantra or Shakotayana or Sarva or Sankshipta Sara, they are Vyakaranas, and they further go beyond explaining the syntax and the logical mind of thought and expression. So this later grammatical literature is important for understanding the philosophy of language and expression. While it is a long journey from Panini's Vedanga status, Vyakarana, Ashtadhyayi, and the whole Panini system of grammar up to the from Gomukha to Ganga Sagar. It's a long journey for Indian linguistic studies and grammatical expositions. Thank you very much for your kind patience, and I'm very sorry that the network disturbed too much.
Thank you, Professor. Just another scholar is waiting for the next lecture. Anyway, your talk is very excellent, and I am particularly thankful to you for mentioning Narayana Bhattadiri of Kerala, Prakriya Sarvasam. Thank you, madam. We can meet again. Wish you all the
later grammars of Panini system, they insisted on Prakriya. So the all Prakriya Kaumud is developed in different parts of India. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Your lecture is very informative and interesting. You give a clear-cut definition about Panini's grammar and Bhartrhari and Patanjali. Once again, thank you, ma'am. Just welcome. So good afternoon, everybody. So I'm ready. So I am very privileged to have an opportunity to welcome Dr. Sai Gida. So she is an in charge head of the Department of Humanities at NITI deemed to be University Mangalore. So she is a very well-known academician, and of course she edited 17 books and co-edited 53 books. So she was